And we are covering Donald Trump's efforts to test or abuse federal powers. He made an unusual address to American soldiers overseas. You may recall the many lectures that have been delivered by politicians, often in the Republican Party, about how politics must stop at the water's edge. Take a listen to yourself about how the president sounded discussing things like his politicized crackdown on what he says are the problems that are only in certain places, basically cities run by the opposition party. He has less time and apparently interest in fighting crime in places that happen to be controlled by his fellow Republicans. And then, in this, again, unusual address to troops overseas, he issued a type of warning.
We can't have cities that are troubled. And we're sending in our National Guard. And if we need more than the National Guard, we'll send more than the National Guard because we're going to have safe cities.
Safe cities, of course, again, the context is the evidence, not just what politicians say, but what they do. And this politician, who is running the United States, has been using this type of force only in places run by the opposition party, which is why it has looked so political. Then you hear the words, quote, more than the National Guard. Well, there ain't a lot more than that other than soldiers or tanks or military powers. We don't want to speculate, but we are covering the president saying this not in a random musing or even one of his online posts, but to a group of assembled soldiers. There are reports that Trump wants to take more political and personal control over aspects of federal force that aren't usually done this way. He may have lawful authority to do that, but it's at least, again, unusual, going at the regional leadership of ICE and Border Patrol and looking for those who would go into those spots and be more aggressive in their approach. A DHS veteran or official but telling us that the mentality is they do what they're told, and the administration thinks ICE isn't getting the job done. So they will do it. Now, again, there is what is allowed, and then there is what is good policy or not. As for what is allowed, it may very well be, the president is currently testing how much the courts will allow him to take more personal control over more aspects of the government. Control over DOJ, reaching down into different parts of these agencies. And then there's the whether this is good or not. That's what elections are about. We'll have one in November. Because a lot of Americans, according to the polling, have looked at what is happening on the immigration crackdown, and they find it to be too much, too aggressive, too unfocused, not targeting violent criminals, but instead mothers who've been here for a decade. And so it is telling that the administration thinks they haven't gone far enough. Now, there's also this discussion of an accusation about using, I'm going to show you this, excessive force. Now, this was filmed with the tear gas being distributed in Chicago. Some of the video is difficult, of course, to follow. That's because some of it has just come about and citizen-made. But you can see some of it here, and we want you to see with your own eyes what went down. There's an alleged violation here of a judge's order that bans agents from deploying gas on protesters. The judge ordered them to appear in court for daily updates. And this is striking because it has to do with the belief by the judge that maybe there isn't real compliance and they need to exercise more oversight. This is about immigration agents wearing body cameras. Axios notes that the president's asserting the right to unilaterally use the military wherever, whenever, and be the sole judge and jury of his own actions. The only real limit on Trump now appears, in his view, to be, quote, Trump himself. Has now been shut down about a month, technically 28 days. Republicans are in control. They have the White House and Congress. Shutdowns usually go to the party in power, and if they last too long and people get upset, they hold the party in power responsible. But we are in strange times, and precedent doesn't always determine what's going to happen. We aren't seeing much of a breakthrough when it comes to the negotiating position. And so whatever you think of the politics, which is where it starts in D.C., we can report, as we try to do around here, on the evidence, which is having the federal government shut down and in this sort of limited mode for a month is affecting real people. Food assistance is seeing longer lines. Federal workers are going weeks without pay. And remember, whatever you think of the people in the federal workforce, they affect our lives, our flights, our national security, and just not getting them paid for a long time, only to pay them again later because politicians couldn't figure this out, is not the best way to retain them or their morale. Meanwhile, whether you're one of them or not, about 40 million people in the United States get some kind of food benefits. They used to call them food stamps. They're now called SNAP. But they're going to face a tough holidays as the program is going to run out of money. I mentioned what's already happened. This is what's going to happen. 3 days from now, 40 million people will be without that food assistance heading into Thanksgiving. Here is Speaker Johnson.
One of the reasons that this shutdown has not yet been as painful as it might otherwise have been is because the president is bent over backwards, the administration. They've done some creative, amazing things to mitigate, to lessen the pain as much as possible.
Speaker Johnson thinks that they are creatively lessening the pain for regular people. Well, on food assistance, actually, the president is refusing to tap funds that are available. It's called a contingency fund. It could be used in exactly this scenario, and it's got billions of dollars, which could do a patch for those people. The idea being that while other things might be worth cutting back on until they reopen the government, having kids not being able to eat isn't one of them. Dozens of states are now suing, saying the cuts aren't fair. They're going to reopen the government someday. We know that. This isn't like a budget cut. Sooner or later, they'll reopen the government. They'll free up the food funds. But why should, and I don't usually speak this starkly, but it's literally the question, why should American children go hungry until then? And that's not the only federal program that affects the young. You've heard of Head Start and early child care. They are now at risk as the funding that lasted for these 28 days will also run out. Now, if preschoolers don't move you, I don't know what will, but maybe you don't want your flight home to be late for Thanksgiving. Does that matter more? Well, that's also affected. Thousands of flights now delayed because we have limited air traffic controllers. They are required by law to work without pay, but if the shutdown draws into the second month, some have to take second jobs to make money before, again, when the government reopens, many will soon return to being full-time traffic controllers. Others are calling in sick and then driving Uber. It's not logical, it's not good for air travel safety, and it's probably not good for you if you plan on flying anytime over the holidays. Trump and Johnson say they are lessening the pain. Not everyone is towing the party line anymore. Some Republicans have been hearing from people in red states who still don't like the flight problems or the preschool problems or the absence of food funding. We had a reference earlier by our colleague Jay Komanduri here saying that some Republicans are turning away from Trump. He cited MTG, and she's ripping her colleagues over this issue, reportedly on a private call today. Whether that goes public soon, we may hear. In every state and in many smaller parts of America, red, blue, purple, whatever, people who are running into this problem, which, again, will end because the politicians will eventually reopen the government. So all of this pain is quite literally avoidable, and some are speaking out.
I'm only down to 1 pack of chicken, and I don't even know what I'm going to do for the next months.
One word to describe how you're feeling right now.
Stressful. That's what it feels like, is that we're being punished for needing the assistance or needing the help.
I just hope and pray that they don't shut it down, because a lot of people and a lot of mothers that are really dependent on the SNAP benefits. My son won't have his milk, and we won't have food. I'll go without eating it or anything as long as my kids eat.
These are real people. These are real problems. They are avoidable. In Washington, we hear about red and blue and politics and ideology, and we cover plenty of that around here, too. But if the politics don't move everyone, maybe the people will. What do you call it when some of the most powerful individuals in the country can't get together and get something solved to help those people you heard there who are feeling very powerless right now?